Welcome back. This is Morning Express, time for the newsroom. Today we have a special guest in studio with us. He's a special guest. You don't quite see him. She's actually never been on Morning Express. First time. My boss.
A special guest that can fire you immediately.
The special boss that can fire.
Come on. So in case we don't show up tomorrow again.
Yeah, I know it's because of some of the questions.
So some of the questions and some of the grilling that will happen.
I refuse to be branded.
Karibu sana. Ageyo, Martin Mutua, always a pleasure. We appreciate you joining us this morning. And let's begin with the weekend. It was quite the weekend. Welcoming back Raila Odinga. 3 months, 2 months, 3 months. How long was it? Because some are saying 2, 3, what?
Yeah, someone asked me, but from March 10th, it's just simple mathematics. I mean, the problem is it says 2.5 or 2 and something, so it's almost 3. So some people.
So slightly over 2 months.
So you round it off to the nearest month.
Exactly.
And a lot, of course, of political statements being made, demands by code on Saturday, and then there was a response later on in the day from the Deputy President, and it appeared to be different tone and language and speak from the President on Madaraka Day. And then again, there was yesterday, you know, and different angle altogether. Have we covered the dynamics and the changing, you know, what we're hearing from these different camps and telling our viewers? Have we covered that well, Joe?
I don't know. I mean, I think what we haven't covered well is something that I found quite mysterious, actually. We remember when the CORD people were at Uhuru Park, and then later on in the evening, we were saying, oh, you know, the Deputy President reacted and said, oh, you know, when he was talking about Serikali ya Makelele and all of these things, it occurred to me that it looks like he spoke before these people even made their statement, which was kind of interesting because he was in Narok, I think it was, a little bit earlier. These people spoke at about 4:30 or something like that. And
also,
so
even
he seemed to be quite informed about
even Dole responded about that Serikali quite early in the day.
Exactly. So they seem to know something that perhaps the people at Uhuru Park didn't quite know by the time they were speaking.
Yeah, because Martin, did we pick out after that Raila speech at 4 something, did we pick out anything about coalition government, in all honesty?
Not at all. The issue of coalition government has been spinned by the Jubilee spin masters, spin doctors, I'm saying, because they picked up what I think Alonso might have said, an all-inclusive government, and to twist it to show that as if CORD wanted to get into government. So you can credit that for them.
No, but to their credit, quite frankly, what Kalonzo said could have been interpreted anyway because he said a couple of things that were interesting. First of all, he said that hawezi kuwa na serikali where 60% of the country is outside there. And then he talked about the all-inclusive government. So last night when I was asking Raila, he said, well, they meant, you know, these other appointments, parastatals and all sorts of things. But I mean, for most people, especially having gone through a grand coalition government anyway, you can forgive people for thinking that's what they wanted. After all, I mean, people expected something really big out of that Uhuru Park meeting, and perhaps that's what these people...
That was the only takeaway from it.
So did we mislead Kenyans by saying that Ruto was responding to what the pronouncements been made at Uhuru Park?
No, we didn't mislead people. We just reported things as they are. It's only that both sides were checkmating each other and trying to be able to be sure that none carries the day ahead of the other.
Because he also said it, actually. He said, you know, tunasikia, tunaambiwa, tuende wherever, nini, wapi, serikali ya kelele. So he was responding, even though we asked questions whether whatever he was responding to had already been spoken or not.
Interesting.
On that same issue, though, how we built up, you know, this Raila return, and I think the whole country was expecting something, you know, Baba, well, you're away, and then he showed up on that day, coming through to Uhuru Park, you know, and everyone was, you know, was live. No one expected, you know, what was going to be said or who was going to say what. And the question that I think people were asking that day, and had been built up by, I think even Jubilee said, you know, these rallies, you know, in Kibera and whatnot, you know, they are hate speech in nature, you know, they're saying, you know, just raising the political emotions of the country unnecessarily. IG himself said this is not a political season. What's the difficulty of bringing this to the nation, and when we didn't know, we were not in charge of what happens at Uhuru Park, we were covering it live. Just speak about the difficulty of putting this.
I guess you're asking me because Martin didn't cover it live.
That's why you're here.
No, I mean, it was a very difficult decision because Uhuru Park, ironically, was quite different from the rallies that led to it. I mean, if you think about Kibera, if you think about Papadogo, I think there was also Mlolongo, and
yes,
these were incendiary meetings. I mean, people, the kind of comments that these people made, the kind of speeches, some of them actually sitting in our library, you couldn't possibly put them on TV, even if it was not live. It was really a serious build-up, so to speak. And so I think people expected Uhuru Park to be sort of this climax where all of these statements, and probably people would march to State House or something. I mean, and so I think in a way, Raila's statement calmed down things a little bit. In some respects, in a strange, twisted way, it was an anticlimax what happened at Uhuru Park, because it wasn't the crescendo that you'd expected, that after these people had gone to Kibera and all these places and the kind of statements they were making, I think people expected something really dramatic, because they were using words like revolution and things like that. And so it was really scary. Like, on the one hand, the people had the right to know what's was going to be said at Uhuru Park. After all, I mean, from the number of people that were going there, there was considerable interest. And let's face it, I mean, Raila Odinga is the kind of, is a figure that you don't find too many people who are neutral about him. Mm-hmm. The people who don't like him really don't like him. The people who like him could die for him. So in a sense, everybody in the country wanted to know what he was going to say, whether they like him or not. Mm-hmm. So I think we needed to put that out. But on the other hand, you were thinking, okay, so what if someone said something there that led to, because the country is still quite divided, and just a small thing could spark a spiral that you can't control.
So what do we do?
So, I mean, you sit there and take discretion and see, okay, fine, let's see if someone is going to say something really bad and see how to manage it. But to be honest, I don't think anybody had a clear template of how this was going to play out and how you were going to. And that we do every day. I mean, you can't predict how a story is going to turn out. And that's why people sit there to make decisions and decide at this point, this is what we're going to do. But it was really, really quite fluid at some point.
Martin,
I think on our part, we are lucky because we were not going live. We could be able to decipher what happens from there and be able to contextualize.
You should have live news.
There's a way you can go live, Martin. There's something there that you can press and you can be live. But anyhow,
insofar as producing the paper is concerned, so we were able to see what was happening and be able to manage it in the way we could do it better. So in terms of the build-up and stuff like that, I think even not only you could see even the government itself was even scared in terms of the decisions that were being taken here and there. They weren't sure what the former PM would come and say. And that's why you saw the reasons were the contradicting statements from the Inspector General of Police, cancelling the rally 1 minute, the next minute, things that he could not take it. So
suspended political parties at some point. Sorry, it was
it's something that was really not, the government of the day wasn't very sure. But what they managed to do even when we spoke last time is that they managed to raise, they're the ones who actually raised the profile of this meeting. Otherwise, I don't think it could have gone to the levels of the way it really occurred at Uhuru Park. So if things had been left to take its course, may probably even not some people would not even have gone live, maybe, because that atmosphere that we created, the IG created, and government would not have been there. But be that as it may, things went the way they were because at least the peaceful nature of ensuring that security was provided and the meeting went on as it was supposed to be, cooled things down. And I think it helped even a day before when Raila himself, prior to his arrival, called for calm and even asked his supporters not to throng the airport. I mean, I think the mood was started going down.
The beautiful thing about that day is that you could drive through Mombasa Road back and forth in 5 minutes, back to town, the whole day. It was all clear. That is the beauty of that day. I think Baba should be coming back more often.
But you see, what Martin is describing is interesting, because remember, a majority of people who are in court are people who have, I mean, the other day Nyong'o was making light of it and saying, professional demonstrators like Orengo. But there was a serious point to it, that a lot of them are people who were involved in the sort of more dramatic side of the search for a new constitution, whether you were talking about Sabasaba, even the original Sabasaba, people like James Orengo were there. So there's a sense in which this was very nostalgic to them. Okay, fine, you want to ban rallies, let's go for it. So I think there was a certain excitement that was created by that, the police and all of these people had set the stage for the sort of thing that these people are more used to, that we can go out there if it comes to that, if we need to be on the streets and everything. I mean, who are spoiling for a fight, they would love that sort of thing. So I think there's a sense in which the Inspector General, with his very interesting bans on Twitter, actually set the stage for the kind of tension that we saw.
I hope they, like we said, they have learned the lesson, so that issues to do with national security of great public interest, you don't go out tweeting and doing stuff like that. It happens even the world of even the major superpowers, when they have something of a serious security nature, they would not go, you would not hear them going to Facebook or Twitter. They would call a press conference,
proper press conference,
and talk about an issue. So I think in terms of also how we are managing our security, we need to move away from the thinking that we have had in terms of how we've dealt with other rallies and stuff like that, to dealing them in a different manner, because things have changed in the country, and we must move with those times.
So on this day, just before we move to the next topic, on the analysis point of it and what happened after that, we've already talked about the spin that was already created, and whether we, took it by hook and crook, and went and tell the public this is what it is. On the bit of analysis of what this return was, some quarters say this return for Raila was about him becoming the ultimate opposition leader. That will be difficult for the people in opposition, Kalonzo and Wetangula, to challenge him. How do you go and say now, let's have, an election to determine who will be the candidate? It's clear, it is Baba while you're away. Things are not working now that you're here. Please lead us, right? And the other side of the debate that would say this was about, putting Jubilee in its rightful place and say we're here and we, on the analysis bit of it, Joe, have we done a good job to explain to people after this return, seeing all that has returned, what was it really, really all about?
I think that someone said it on social media, I think it must have been on Twitter last night, that this whole thing has woken Jubilee up from his slumber. That's what it is. Like, there's a sense in which Jubilee also now is standing up to say, this is what we have done, forget about those guys, and sort of defending its record, whatever is there. And I think that's an interesting bit that perhaps hasn't come out as clearly. I think most of the coverage, and perhaps rightly so, has tended to be based a lot on because there's a lot that's going on. So we have the rally at Uhuru Park. These people talk about national dialogue. There's confusion about what that really means. Then we are now talking about IEBC and disbanding and all of these things. And then there's this flip-flopping where on the first day the deputy president says, no, we are not interested. Then the president says on Madaraka Day, fine, we can talk, except we don't think about sharing a government or whatever. And then yesterday there is this hardline position coming from that meeting, chaired again by the president and the deputy, and Duale saying some rather interesting things there. And then this guy saying, well, fine, if you want us to meet, please come for a cup of tea at State House. That's all right. And I think so the coverage mostly, I think, has been centered on the twists and turns of this whole thing, what that thing really meant. But as you rightly point out, I think there is a deeper political symbolism around this that one can talk about. If you think about the fact that CORD itself appeared to be dead when Raila was out there, and it is only like, I think a week or two before he returned that they seemed to be waking up, and it was really like setting the stage for him to come. So in a sense, there was an implicit message there that Raila, to a large extent, is CORD, and CORD is Raila. I think that is the implicit message that this sent, and I think he's coming, and I think he kind of liked this whole idea of people calling him Baba, you know, like I was seated here last night and was telling me that, you know, yeah, these people talk to me, they send me letters and they say Baba, you know.
Yes.
You know, so like, yeah, all of these people are fine, they can keep speaking, but when you want to talk about Baba, who's, you know, like, it's me. And I think he's having quite a bit of fun with that.
Yes, even as he has fun, love him or hate him, you can't wish Raila away. He was making news even when he was away. People are wondering, were actually on every scale, they wanted to know how he's doing, what he's doing. There are questions being raised in Parliament. What is he doing in the US? You know, stuff like that. And I think it beholds the government of the day, even at that time, that whatever the Raila was should be safe and sound, so that nothing happens to him. It was in their interest, so that even if he shows up, he must be in the right side, whatever side of mind, you know. So you can say whatever you want to say, but he is in the politics of the country. You can never wish Raila away. So in terms of how he commandeered this kind of move and the kind of multitude you saw at Uhuru Park, definitely is that a person?
Isn't that funny though, Martin? Because just before when he left, this ODM thing was just crumbling left and center. Men in black can't hold elections, and they look just all sorts. And all the opinions on the newspaper was like, you know what? In fact, Raila should retire, and that is in conversation for about a year. Isn't that funny that, you know, our analysis couldn't pick that out?
No, I think that sabbatical helped for people to be able to understand where the opposition really lies. You've heard stuff about how the opposition was not putting government in check. And like, for instance, the issue that had happened at Kasarani, what you said, that seems to have faded away now. But now
it never happened.
Yeah,
it never happened.
Yeah, but you see, he also played on a tried and tested method in this country. When I mean, think about it. All the way back, even in the days of Ford, Matiba goes to the UK, and there's something about homecoming in this country that's just, I mean, that's why everybody, an MCA, whatever, anybody gets elected, and then they want to do some homecoming. Yes. The other day we had Lusaka homecoming. I was quite puzzled because the guy was at home, so I don't know.
He's been there.
He was elected governor of Bungoma. He still had a homecoming. So there's something about homecoming in this country that is magical. So I think Raila being away for 2.5 months and then he's coming back home, I think they thought that they would get a political moment there to sort of reinvent him in a certain way. And I think to a very large extent they've succeeded in doing that, creating this anxiety. Where is this man? What is he doing? Is he planning something with Obama? And all sorts of conspiracy theories. And then this build-up around his coming. And then he comes and, yeah, I mean, there's this conversation for the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be about CORD and Raila and everything. So in a sense, you find actually the government now is doing more reacting than the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think even moving forward, I think you've seen now the fact that Jubilee has shut the doors on on CORD's suggestion on dialogue. Trust me, they will now move to a different level. They had indicated that they would do political rallies around the country. I think now that will be the most vigorous thing that they're going to do now, because since they will run away with this and start talking about the issues that they think the Jubilee government has not addressed. First, the key issue in this rally at Uhuru Park was CORD was demanding the issue, has been demanding the issue of IEBC, which we put up at the standard, and for them is very key in terms of they believe that the Isaac team has no business doing the next election. But you see, the Jubilee government is also in a dilemma, because if they cede ground and accept that kind of argument, it means they invalidate the election of Uhuru Kenyatta and his team. Yeah. So there is no way that that agreement is going to come to the table and that will be a point of discussion, a point of debate throughout the rallies that we're going to see, that for sure that is what they're going to commence, and they'll be hammering that point day in, day out.
But Martin, have you been breaking it down for people to understand? Because a lot of rhetoric we hear from, CORD, from Jubilee, especially what you've touched on IEBC, telling Kenyans, as much as they're saying this is what it takes to disband this or to put this apart. So that it's not too much politicking and we're just taking left, right said this, left said this, but what is the context? What is the bigger picture? The neutral people that we are supposed to be saying this is what it looks like. Despite this one saying this and the other, ultimately it boils down to this.
You see, what the strategy CORD is using is that if they know if you follow the channel, try to disband IBC through Parliament, they will not be able to do that because of the tyranny of numbers. So what do they say? They say, because we believe we've been, in their minds, we believe we've been robbed these elections, and if we attempt to go the same way we're going to go, it will not work. So what is the solution? To go back to the people and now start to build up emotions and create this thing and discredit the
And to what end do you do that? And are we covering that as well? To what end, when you've created those emotions, we're coming to 2017, doesn't that then just draw that line even deeper in as far as the entrenchment of that feeling we are not part of the government?
I think there's and that's an interesting point you raise, but I think there's a general ignorance in the country about the constitution that we passed. And I think that sometimes we gloss over these things, even in the media, where we say disbanding IEBC, because it's not so much about disbanding the commission. I think the point that these people are making is that these particular commissioners that are there right now, because the IEBC is a constitutional commission. That's the problem that they had with the Sarah Serem Commission, the SRC, because they were saying, we want to disband this thing. We said, no, you don't just wake up in Parliament and whatever, and those things are protected in the Constitution. And I think that that's not even the point these people are making, but I think in the minds of a lot of people, including the people who are talking, they probably have in mind just getting rid of the whole thing. So if you think about, we passed the Constitution, it's almost 4 years now in August, but there are so many things in there that we don't even know, and that is why you actually find people trying to ban things around, because we are still in a mindset where we are very happy about disbanding things and banning things. But at the end of the day, I think that this whole thing is going to be a political contest in the sense that, as Martin says, ODM knows that, or CORD in general, they know that they don't have the numbers in Parliament to do any of the things they want to do, but they know that there is a significant number of people out there to whom this one will resonate, but also the fact that there is some sort of general disillusionment. There are people who are not necessarily CORD supporters, but they are not very sure about what's going on in the country. And sometimes people like that are very easy to excite politically. And therefore, I think they're also riding on the fact that there's so much uncertainty in the country. And for an opposition party, they would love to do that. That is their job, to make sure that the government is constantly on its toes. If you asked any person in the opposition, they want to get into power yesterday.
And the other thing is that IBC also not helping this process, because at this point in time, we're not seeing what IBC is supposed to be doing, because if they had also come in terms of even earlier, after the elections, to start programs that people would, they would endear people to themselves in terms of ensuring that there is confidence created around that institution, it would have helped the Isaac Hassan team. But what do we see? The other thing, they in Parliament, and they come up with a statement that they have started secretly registering voters. How do you go? I know in terms of registration of voters, it's supposed to be a continuous process. That's okay. But when you start a process like that, it beholds the Kenyan taxpayers to know that an exercise is going on. What is so big deal coming out and in a press conference and say, this is our program, we are charting towards the next election, this is how we want to manage things. We have these programs we've started. They're going to be civic education, there's going to be continuous registration of voters, and we're starting in these particular areas. They be proactive, but when they go out and start being secretive about certain things, it also now creates a lot of suspicions among people. up and you give the opposition fodder to start fighting you. So they are also not helping this.
Yeah, but I mean, but also CORD, I mean, needs to be careful about what they're asking for. I mean, at a political level, supposing Jubilee accedes to these demands very close to the next election, I mean, you have a new set of commissioners coming
People
in.
that you can control.
I mean, it is a process that is fraught with risks in the sense that one of the biggest problems we have, I personally think that IEBC, perhaps if there was a problem, because there were many problems in that election, and we haven't had evidence as things stand now about active manipulation. But I think that there was a lot of confusion in that whole system, things not working and everything. And to an extent, it was because they changed commissioners midstream. I mean, we had the IIEC, which was fine, an interim body, but a lot of those guys had done some election work, and they did well with the referendum and some of the by-elections. But we come to an election where almost everybody is new and they're trying to learn the ropes, and you have a very competitive, complex election. You are not going to get a very good election anyway, even if there is no rigging. Okay, so if we go like this again and then very close to 2017, we say, okay, fine, you guys want a new election, a new electoral body, set of commissioners, you have it. Then what happens? We'll probably have another confusion. So I think it is a discussion that needs to be done in a very sober way, that we say, fine. We had a discussion here a couple of weeks ago. We were saying, okay, can we start that conversation now? How do we deal with this question of elections, where people can actually go out to an election and then everybody is confident about the results, whoever wins?
Right.
Actually, it's a conversation we need to create now, because some of the commissioners, I think their term is ending in November, just before we go to the elections.
I think 2016 or
yes,
something.
So it is a serious issue, that a conversation that needs to be created. So
and its term ends in November on the 2017, so after August elections, if they actually held
August. So you see, there's also that confusion still, whether we're going to be having it in August or we'll have it in December, and the term of the commissioner. So it's a very dicey issue, and if we don't stay on this debate, it will catch up with us.
And even one of the things CORD has been asking for, well, some people in CORD, I think, about the election date also being moved, which was part of that strategy. Okay, fine, if we can't get the disbandment thing, then let's have the election in December, then automatically their term will have expired in November. But how do you have a commission for 1 month and then you do an election? I mean, it's all confusion, and we need to be very sober about the whole thing.
Exactly. So it's very critical that this conversation does not die. Otherwise, we will keep quiet, and then we get towards there. If we have to change the commissioners, then we will get into, I think we can even get to more worse problems than we are in. Because as Joe says, the fact that we had new guys who came in and we now still are grappling with what we are having now is something that can also happen again. How do we forestall that kind of problem? It's a discussion that the country.
But the commission itself not helping itself as well. You know, starting the whole registration, not talking about it, because it was as simple as a press conference. They didn't, because the excuse they're giving is money, that they needed money. You don't need, all you need is send even Joe a message. We need reporters. We have a, press conference, and then they'll spread the word. The radio stations will talk about registration. So also there's a feeling you get that also IEBC, in as far as regaining that confidence, they just sat back.
We are just a suspicious country, Sophia, because we are supposed to have continuous registration, by the way.
It's actually the Constitution.
Yeah, but from where we've come from and the kind of politics
they should have been
Kenya,
registering people yesterday. They should have been registering people. I mean,
today,
and just finish. I think, is it a month or something to the election? There has to be a point at which they close the register, and then now they say these are the people who are going into an election. But immediately the election is over. One person we were interviewing here some time ago said, immediately we finished with this election, they should have started preparations for 2017, but I don't think they did. I mean, even the quiet registration, I'm not too sure how many people are doing it. So to the extent that people needed to know so that they can actually go and register, maybe they needed to shout a little bit.
They couldn't even give the number. But let's move to the next issue. Anne Waiguru, an issue that refuses to go away. A nightmare for the Jubilee coalition, exposes the cracks in between, the coalition, and whatnot, and including Deputy President, having his own, fires to put off back at home.
Yeah, at least yesterday, Waiguru could have gotten a very thin lifeline from the talks that were at State House, because it actually appeared that the Jubilee side of the Jubilee members are very angry with a couple of other cabinet secretaries, and we have put that in our story in the Standard, and we've named Engineer Kamau, Kaimenyi, Koske.
On the firing line.
Yes, they said it's not only Waigoro, but they told the president to his face that these your cabinet secretaries these ones are arrogant. They don't engage with us. So it's not only Waigoro. If you want us to let Waigoro off the hook, you must deal with also these cabinet secretaries who are pretending to be very arrogant and they don't want to engage with us. So she could have gotten that.
But it's trying to give them back their flags.
Yes. But he's still, we also have a story on the motion mover who says he's still standing his ground.
Yeah.
In fact, yesterday he said, immediately after that meeting, 5 more people signed his petition.
Yeah, but I don't think that ultimately his idea is to really have anyone impeached. I don't think he'll get the numbers.
It's a good threat.
It's more of teaching people a lesson, if you like, in the sense that, I mean, supposing, for example, that motion actually makes it to the floor of the House and it is debated, I mean, people are going to say all sorts of things. At the end of the day, maybe it's not passed or everything, but at least that humiliation of having your character or whatever it is discussed on the floor of Parliament, and those people have parliamentary privilege, so they can say anything they want. You know, they said this person is the most arrogant person you've ever seen, and all sorts of unprintable things. They can say things. So I think that the idea is just, even if we're not going to remove someone, let's show them, because, I mean, MPs have their own grouses about the fact that these people are, you know, they're professionals, technocrats, and all of those. I mean, there was I saw a story the other day where some people suggestions that, hey, man, we should draw cabinet secretaries from the National Assembly. So I think there are many politicians out there who are thinking, who are these guys? I mean, who do they think they are? Because traditionally, those positions have been held by politicians. And to an extent, I think that is accounts for some of the problems we've seen in the government, where you don't quite get the sense that they feel the country politically. Like there aren't too many political minds around there within the cabinet, because these people are too busy doing their technocratic things. And
they believe part of their job is to go to functions with the president and deputy president, and that is where they, you know, they get their tick, you know, not in the public domain, you know, not in explaining anything to the baraza or to the press.
So I think that we as a country, we are still not been able to grapple with this new system. And the fact that even the members themselves are feeling the pinch is that it shows that we will need some time so that we can understand how this system works. Because that is what Kenyans decided when they passed this constitution. They decided that we want a government that is delinked from the political system, so that they can do their work as government in terms of development, and these politicians can continue politicking from their own end. So that is what we chose, and we must be able, it is a bet we made, we must be prepared to lie on it. So let's face it, we will have to do this until in the next 5 years. If we feel within those 5 years that this thing has not worked well, then we have room to change the constitution. But I think it's too early to pretend that we can say that now these guys, we have to involve politicians into the executive. We have delinked this. Let's see how whether by the end of the 5 years we will have made more progress than we did in the other, as opposed to the other years.
There were indications that, because one of the other issues touching on her and the reasons being given for her to be impeached is the Gor Semelango as well sacking, and that it had happened actually 2 months before. So how is it that such a thing would happen and somebody's still in office? He realizes, and for me, I remember one of the days doing the press review, and I read the entire story from one of the dailies. It was a letter purely from Gor, with no, even we tried to reach Waigoro and she declined to give a comment. I felt it was very, but yeah, in such situations, why would that happen and nobody knows?
Yes, that's now why we have the checks and balances in terms of this. I hope if this motion is allowed in Parliament, Linturi and other members will be able to give reasons as to why they think the Waiguru should be impeached. I think, I believe in the fact that the executive has no business meddling in what happens in Parliament, because Parliament has a clear-cut way of how to operate. If it has been given powers to carry out certain processes, those processes must be allowed to go to the full length. But as Joe rightly put it, it will be sort of an indictment in terms of the Jubilee government, so to speak. I mean, they will feel that they're already being hit below the belt in terms of...
I think we have, based just on political reality, we have a false system, if you ask me, a false system of checks and balances, in the sense that the reason why we opted for this system where cabinet secretaries would be drawn from out there was so that we could depoliticize the cabinet, that is one, but also that Parliament could effectively check on the executive, where you would say, okay, those ministers, equivalents now, cabinet secretaries, are not members of the National Assembly, and therefore it is easier for them to be checked by Parliament. So the legislature would be checking the executive. But what do we have here? We have Parliament that owes a lot of allegiance, a vast majority of MPs, to the executive, so that there are people who think it is their job in Parliament to defend the executive. So how do you have a system like that? And it is not just because Jubilee in power. If it was CORD in power, it would still be the same thing. Yeah. So you still find that all of these MPs see their primary duty as defending the executive, defending President Uhuru Kenyatta, for instance. So if you were to, the reason why a lot of these people are now sort of trying to withdraw their signatures is because, hey, this is likely to embarrass the president, that, you know, one of his appointees has a problem. And that is the false system where we find ourselves in. And I think there will have to be a discussion at some point whether our stage of political development is ready for this kind of separation, where you are saying these people are not politicians, they're going to do their thing and Parliament does its own. I really think that we have muddied the waters too much, that you can't even tell the line between the executive and the legislature.
Absolutely. So that is the kind of the dilemma we are facing, and it's going to play out in every other moment, such that if there are certain reasons that to warrant the sort of censure or impeachment of a cabinet secretary, you'll always see the head of state or his deputy coming to their aid, and that sort of complicates the equation in Parliament, because now they are forced to be whipped by their various whips, so that they don't support this kind of move. And politics definitely set in, because now they will start branding these issues as an opposition engineered process or stuff like that. Then in the whole process, we lose the whole debate. So I think Parliament needs to put its foot down and find its ground, so that it can be able to do its oversight role, devoid of the executive, whether they are in the opposition or in government.
But the question is, how does the US and the Congress operate? You know, it appears most of their duties is 80% in the committees, and the committees have even the publicity, you know, to call in a cabinet executive or whoever it is and question them, and the public gets it. It's very rarely we see their motions in Parliament, because now we have something that is our old Parliament and something like the Congress, where the committees still do a lot of work, but their publicity comes at the floor of the House.
Yeah, I mean, we can't unfortunately compare the two systems based just, in my view, on the stages of political development, the levels of political maturity, as I said. I mean, I don't think there is anybody who, in the Congress, the Democrats support a lot of policies that Obama tries to put out there, but it's not always a guarantee.
He has to convince them.
He has to convince them, and it has to be something that they know a majority of Americans out there will support, or at least their supporters, whoever that congressperson is, whichever place they come from, they will know what the people down there like. If it is like the Obamacare thing, whatever, every congressman or woman wants to find out what the state is saying. So if it is something on gun laws or whatever, there might be a Democrat's position on that, but then someone will have to think, what do my voters want? If it's something on climate change or whatever, then they say, I have coal miners in my backyard, so I'm not going to do this. So that's the sort of thing that goes on there. They think about their voters before they take a vote. Right now, I'm not sure that people who are signing, they know what their voters back at home think, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you belong to the right political party, you get elected anyway. So who cares what some village out there is saying? They don't worry about that. They say that when the time comes, we'll sell, this is the party that we are selling in this part, and that is it. And that is really the unfortunate part. So I think that the effectiveness of our Parliament as it is both houses, is actually hindered by all these political considerations that you don't want to embarrass someone. I mean, the deputy president went out there saying, hey, wachana na mtu mdogo, talk to me now.
Talk to me. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we return, whatever happened to Anglo leasing? Because we heard about the demand for 3.5 billion shillings. The government said we're going to put up a spirited legal battle to ensure that does not happen. But
3.5 ni akutoa.
Yeah, but you know, but will the next big headline be they paid and you know now they're explaining why they gave out the money? Why are we not pushing the government to understand how exactly are you going to put out this spirited battle that you didn't for the 1.4 billion? And also very importantly, in other parts of the country, dozens have been killed, hundreds others have been misplaced, Mandera, Wajir, Garissa. We're not seeing as much of uproar in as far as what's happening there, even with our coverage.
Oh, we've covered this a lot.
We need to.
Yeah, you shall defend yourself. You're saying we need what?
We need to send Sophia to those places so that she can see we are covering it. Taking a short break.
Coming back in a short while.